Is there maybe a common or unique challenge that your franchisees face that has to be addressed during the training or ongoing support that might be different or something unexpected?
Absolutely. So sometimes what happens is that franchisees are busy executives and they get nervous. And so we have a hiring portal where all the job descriptions are written, et cetera. All you have to do is push a button. It goes out to all the job boards. We usually get about 100 applicants per open position. One of the mistakes that franchisees make is they hire the first person that applies because they're afraid they're not going to find a good person, or they feel that it's too much effort to really get to know people before hiring them. I think that's the number one mistake people make, is not particular enough on their choice of employee in a store. It's just like when you're a founder and you're freaking out to sell your first location and you might not be picky enough.
Right.
The same goes for at a store level. And so that is something that we are coaching our franchisees on, helping create check sheets and questions and answers to ask those employees so we don't run into, you had 100 applicants, why this person?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I did catch early on, you mentioned having absentee owners. Of your 36 that are open, what would you say is kind of the breakdown of owners that are absentee versus running a store?
I would say about 60% are absentee. They're working on the business, not in the business, or they've hired somebody that's going to handle the business development growth for them. You only need 2 employees to run a Hawaii Fluid Art. So if you hire 2.5 and your part-time person, their sole job is to be in the community driving business to the store, you really only spend 5 hours a month working on the business as a franchisee. But that's because of the support we offer. That's not normal. That is not a normal franchise ability. But because of the support that we offer at the leadership level, our franchisees can own 2 or 3 stores and spend 5 to 10 hours a month on that store.
Okay. And that actually gets me to the multi-unit franchise, I guess, opportunity. So with 100 plus open, what about the comparison? How many are multi-unit owners versus single unit operators?
About 50% of our franchisees start out as single unit. And within 6 months, about 50% of those add an additional unit to their development agreement. So we see existing franchisees that are very excited about the brand. Once they get into it and understand the support that we offer and the guidance that we offer, they say, hey, I want another one, or I want 3 more. We have a franchisee in California that started off with 2 locations and now has 6.
Wow, that's a great testament to the brand. Again, so early on. What's the investment range for one location?
183,000 to 323. The reason there's such a big spread there is I opened the Las Vegas location last year. Might have gone a little over budget on that one.
Okay. So I assume though it is, there is a territory, right? Or there's some sort of geographic boundaries. How big is the territory?
Depends on the population base and drive times. They range between 3 miles and 5 miles. But we are not a standard franchise in the fact that we do not want locations every 5 miles. We really want our franchisees to have a population base of between 125 and 150,000 people per location. So what we do is we really draw a bubble around that space and say, this is your territory. And we're not going to put them too close together because we don't believe in having franchisees compete with other franchisees. We want them all to be on the same team.
Sure. Is there a certain selection process that you guys use or do you use software to develop which new markets you're going to get into? What makes you decide what market's good or not?
Well, we do a lot of research. We have software development, and I spend a lot of time on the road. I believe boots on the ground is one of the best ways to determine if a Hawaii Fluid Art is going to be a good fit in a certain location. So I travel around the United States. We have strategic meetings around the United States. We do a lot of investigation. We also work with Morrow Hill, who is our real estate partner, and they help us with a lot of research. I also am fortunate enough that when I used to work in banking, I lived all over the United States opening branches. So I know a little bit more about certain areas than I guess the average Joe might know. Nice. So it's a lot of fun doing the research and the deep dive on where to put the next Hawaii Fluid Art.
What's the typical size of the footprint?
Anywhere between 1,400 and 1,800 square feet. That being said, we do have some as large as 2,800 square feet because real estate was so inexpensive in their area. And we've introduced the splatter room. And so Some studios offer that. And then we have them as the tiny baby store in Hawaii. She's just under 900 square feet, but really 14 to 1800 square feet right in there.
So I'm thinking this through here. You're doing experiences once an hour, right?
Yep.
And so how many people are typically in an experience per hour?
So I love this question. So, we're the one-to-many concept. Imagine if a hairdresser could cut 15 people's hair at a time.
Right.
We can accommodate 15 students at a time with an average spend. That puts us at $1,800 an hour in potential revenue being generated. Now, not all classes or experiences are full, but when you have 2 or 3 people in an experience with an average spend of $120 to $125 in that 45-minute time frame, the revenue per hour that we generate is exceptional, especially when you think about the fact that we run at a 90 to 95% profit margin based on the art experience itself.
Well, that explains why we have 36 open and 100 plus in development in a year and a half.
Yeah.
That is incredible. What's been your biggest surprise, Maya, since you've been franchising this whole entire 2 years?
My biggest surprise is probably how much everything costs, to be frank.
Right, I bet.
I think that when you bootstrap something, you've put your whole heart and soul in it. You've put every 401k you had, your house, you name it, you've put it in the business. And I think that surprises as a founder can be kind of scary. But I also believe that you have to roll with it and have complete faith in yourself, your brand, the universe. And I'm very fortunate in the fact that when we hit a speed bump, it's just like, bloop. There's not a big, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? I'm very balanced and stable in the fact that, this is a problem. Let's build an SOP. We've got a way to solve it. And so I think that's one of them. And the other thing that I think really surprises me or that is difficult about franchising is the amount of people that don't know about franchising and how amazing it can be. There's a lot of people out there that don't want to work a job anymore.
Right.
They've worked at the same company for 22 years and they hate it every single day. And they don't realize that there's an opportunity out there, whether it's my brand or another brand. There is a different way of life. There is a way to impact your community. There's a way to have a smile on your face every day. And I think that more people just need to know about franchising and, through podcasts like this and public speaking opportunities and being on radio shows, it just really helps other people understand that there is a different way of life.
Yeah. With that said, there's so many founders that watch or listen to our show and they're just getting started in franchising. And you've had this truly tremendous amount of success in a short period of time. I'd say you're probably one of the fastest growing franchisors that I have interviewed in this past year. Maya, has there been a specific challenge or maybe mistake that was made that maybe you could share with the fellow founders on what you did to overcome it and you've been able to experience such phenomenal growth? What's been the secret to that?
Well, I think what's really important as an emerging founder is to ask questions. You don't know what you don't know. Mm-hmm. There are things that I did not know. And I had to find out that the reason they call them valuable lessons is because they usually cost you a lot of money. So one of the things that I let founders out there know is call me. Send me a message to LinkedIn. I will tell you what payroll company I use. I will tell you what hiring system I use. I will tell you what I'm paying, per credit card transaction, so you don't have to make the same financial mistakes that I did. And I think that if people were more open instead of gatekeeping what's helping them be successful, franchising in general would be a better business for everyone. And so I just think that asking for help is 100% okay. And then I think the other mistake that any new franchisor makes is that they're overly eager to sell their first location without the support system and process. You cannot support a brand unless you have an infrastructure. Don't rush to market. Build your infrastructure so you're prepared to be successful. And that's the other little bit of advice that I would give.
Well, and you kind of touched on this very early on, and I kind of overlooked it, but it's really, I think there's great value in this to talk about. You put those standard operating procedures involved early. You had the infrastructure to be able to support this growth. It's one thing to be able to sell, 36 or 136 franchises, but it's another thing to be able to support them. There are many franchisors that wouldn't be able to support 100 200 franchises in the first 2 years. What were maybe some of the most important things that you put in place early on that allowed you to be able to open so many locations, every month?
A staff. I invested in a staff before, number one, I could really afford them, and number two, before I needed them. You can't play catch up in franchising. Right. You can't have 10 open units and no support staff. So I found people, leaders that wanted to help other people. And we taught them all about Hawaii Fluid Art. I think one of the really cool things about our brand is that 3 of our franchisees are on our leadership team. They're absentee owners for their franchise. And they love the brand so much that they wanted to come work for leadership. They have very diverse backgrounds. And we saw that as an opportunity because they could give us advice from the franchisee's point of view and from a leadership point of view. And so I really think that building out a team, especially a franchise success manager, somebody who's going to coach the franchisee on a weekly basis or every other week, is absolutely vital before you have a bunch of open units.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fiume, or Emerging Franchise Group LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.